The transmission crackled through every speaker in the communications room, barely audible through layers of static and interference. Diane Brooks leaned forward in her chair, watching the holographic display flicker and struggle to maintain the image of the small alien creature on screen. The being looked fragile, with translucent skin that showed delicate vein patterns beneath. Its large eyes held something Diane had seen too many times before: pure terror. "Please," the creature whispered, its translator struggling to keep pace with rapid speech. "My people are dying. The swarm has consumed half our world in 3 days. They eat everything: the forests, the oceans, even the soil itself. We have no weapons. We have no soldiers. We have nothing but this message." Diane glanced at Dr. Neil Foster, standing beside her workstation. The xenobiologist's face had gone pale as he read the data scrolling across his tablet. Whatever he was seeing, it was not good news. The alien on screen continued, its voice breaking. "The Galactic Council reviewed our petition. They said our situation is regrettable but unsalvageable. They said intervention would violate 47 different protocols. They said we should have prepared better defenses." The creature's hands trembled. "How do you defend against something that turns your entire planet into food?" "Who are you?" Diane asked gently. "I am Ambassador Rhea of the Quillen Harmony. I speak for 3 billion souls who have 72 hours left to exist." Rhea looked directly into the camera, and Diane felt the weight of that gaze across light years of space. "We know what humans are. We know you come from a death world. We know your history is written in blood and survival. We fear you almost as much as we fear the swarm." Diane said nothing, letting Rhea continue. "But fear is meaningless when extinction is certain. So I ask, as the last act of a dying civilization, will you help us? Will you come?" Rhea's image flickered. "We cannot pay you. We have nothing you would want. We can only offer gratitude and the knowledge that you saved something beautiful from being erased from the universe." The transmission cut out, leaving only static. Neil finally spoke. "The Ravager swarm. I have heard stories, but I thought they were myths." He turned his tablet toward Diane. "They are real. Parasitic. Hive-minded. They strip worlds bare, consume the biomass, then split into smaller swarms and move to the next system. According to this data, the Quillen homeworld will be completely sterile in 71 hours and 43 minutes. Can the swarm be stopped?" Diane asked. "Everything can be stopped," Neil said. "The question is how much force it takes." Diane stood and walked to the viewport. Outside, the void of space stretched endlessly. Somewhere out there, billions of innocent beings were being devoured alive, while bureaucrats cited protocols. She had joined the service because Earth had learned hard lessons about standing by while atrocities happened. Never again, humanity had sworn. "Not on our watch." "How fast can we get there?" she asked. "Diane, the council explicitly said." "I do not remember asking about the council." Diane turned to face her crew. "I asked how fast we can get there." Neil checked his calculations. "At maximum FTL, 68 hours. We would arrive with less than 4 hours to spare. Then we leave in 20 minutes. Diane activated the ship-wide comm. "All hands, this is Brooks. Battle stations. We have a distress call from the Quillen Harmony. Their world is under attack by a Ravager swarm. They have asked for our help. I'm not ordering anyone to come. This mission violates council regulations. Anyone who wants to transfer off the Horizon's watch has 15 minutes to pack." She released the comm button and waited. The silence stretched for 10 seconds. Then 20. Then her second officer's voice came through. "Captain, this is Lieutenant Sam Perry. Marine contingent is already suiting up. What do we deploy?" More voices followed. "Engineering, medical, tactical. Every department reporting ready. Not a single crew member requested transfer." Neil smiled sadly. "You know this will end your career if we survive." "Probably," Diane agreed. "But I can live with that. I cannot live with doing nothing." Within 18 minutes, the Horizon's watch broke orbit and jumped to FTL. Within 25 minutes, other human ships in the sector received the same data packet Diane had transmitted. Within an hour, 6 more vessels altered course to follow. No formal orders. No official authorization. Just humans doing what humans did when someone screamed for help into the darkness. The ship hurtled through folded space toward a dying world. Diane sat at her quarters reviewing everything they knew about the Ravagers. Not much. Enough to be terrifying. She pulled up the file on the Quillan species. Herbivores. Peaceful. Their entire civilization had never experienced war. They had no word for murder in their language. They settled disputes through meditation and consensus. They were everything humanity was not, which meant they needed humanity more than they knew. Diane's door chimed. Sam Perry entered, already in combat armor. "We are running scenarios," the Marine said. "But honestly, Captain, we have never fought anything like this. Swarms are different. No command structure to decapitate. No supply lines to cut. Just endless hunger. Then we learn fast," Diane said. "We have 66 hours. Sam nodded and turned to leave, then paused. "My grandfather fought in the Liberation Forces during the last World War. He told me something I have never forgotten. He said that sometimes mercy wears armor and carries a gun, because the monsters do not stop for kind words." After Sam left, Diane looked out her quarters' small viewport. Somewhere ahead in the black, 3 billion beings waited to die. They had asked for mercy from a species that had clawed its way up from the bottom of Earth's brutal food chain. They had asked for salvation from creatures who had survived ice ages, plagues, and countless wars. They had asked the Deathworlders for help. And the Deathworlders were coming. Not because it was profitable, not because it was safe, not because the Council approved, but because someone had to, and humanity had learned long ago that if you wanted to sleep at night, sometimes you had to become the thing that scared the monsters. The countdown continued. 66 hours and falling. Neil Foster stared at the biological scans of the Ravager specimens, feeling his stomach turn. 12 hours into their journey, and the more he learned about what awaited them, the worse it became. The creatures were not like anything in the galactic database. They existed in a state between individual organism and collective consciousness, each one driven by the same primal directive: consume, reproduce, spread. "They are beautiful in a horrible way," he muttered, rotating the three-dimensional model on his screen. The Ravager looked like someone had crossed a locust with a spider and given it acid for blood. Perfect killing machines. No brain in the traditional sense. No fear. No pain receptors. Just hunger. Behind him, Ambassador Rhea watched from a corner of the lab. The Quillan envoy had remained aboard the Horizon's watch, too terrified to return home, too loyal to abandon her people completely. She had spent most of the journey in silence, observing the humans with barely concealed fear. "How did your people survive things like this on Earth?" Rhea asked quietly. Neil turned to face her. "We did not have things exactly like this, but we had predators, many predators, and we were prey once, a very long time ago." He pulled up an image of Earth from 2 million years before. "Our ancestors were small, weak, slow. Everything wanted to eat us. Big cats, bears, crocodiles, even other primates. What changed?" Rhea's large eyes reflected the screen's glow. "We learned to use tools. We learned to cooperate. We learned to be more dangerous than the things hunting us." Neil showed her images of early humans with spears, then guns, then spacecraft. "We did not get stronger. We got smarter and meaner. And we never forgot what it felt like to be prey." Rhea shuddered. "Your world sounds like a nightmare." It was, Neil agreed. Ice ages that lasted thousands of years. Volcanoes that blocked out the sun. Diseases that killed half our population. Droughts. Floods. Earthquakes. He smiled without humor. "Earth tried very hard to kill us for 300,000 years. We are still here because we are too stubborn to die." In the training bay, Sam Perry was putting the Marine contingent through combat drills for the 15th time. 73 men and women moved through scenarios, adapting tactics on the fly. The Ravagers would not fight like anything they had trained against. No formations, no strategy, just overwhelming numbers and relentless aggression. "They will come from everywhere," Sam shouted over the sound of simulated weapons fire. "Above, below, through the walls if they can. Your job is not to kill them all. Your job is to protect the civilians while we figure out how to kill them all. A young Marine raised her hand. Sir, the simulations show we will run out of ammunition in the first 6 hours. Then we use knives. Then we use rocks. Then we use our fists. Sam's voice was steel. We do not stop. We do not retreat. We hold the line until the civilians are safe. That is what humans do. The Marine nodded, understanding that in engineering, Chief Rita Walsh had torn apart 3 weapon systems and was rebuilding them into something new. Standard plasma rifles would work on the Ravagers, but not efficiently. The creatures had distributed nervous systems. You could blow a hole through one, and it would keep coming until it physically could not move anymore. We need area effect weapons, she told her team. Incendiaries, explosives, things that do not just damage but destroy. She held up a modified grenade. This is Prototype 7. Instead of fragmenting, it releases a thermite cloud. Anything organic in a 15-meter radius burns to ash. One of her engineers looked worried. Chief, that seems excessive. Excessive is when you use more force than necessary, Rita countered. There is no such thing as excessive when you're trying to stop a planet from being eaten. On the bridge, Diane received a transmission from one of the other human ships that had joined their unauthorized mission. The captain appeared on screen, a gray-haired woman named Patricia Vance. Brooks, I just got a message from the council, Patricia said. They are threatening to revoke our licenses, impound our ships, and charge us with violating interstellar law. They want us to turn back immediately. Are you? Diane asked. Patricia laughed. Not a chance. I sent them a message telling them exactly where they could file their complaints. We will deal with consequences after we save 3 billion lives. 2 more ships dropped out of FDL nearby. Then another. Then 3 more. Word had spread through human space faster than official channels could contain it. Every vessel was a volunteer. Every crew knew the risks. They came anyway. By the 30-hour mark, the human fleet numbered 14 ships. Not a military armada. Cargo holders. Science vessels. Even a civilian passenger liner that had been converted to carry emergency supplies. Each one brought weapons, personnel, or both. Diane called a fleet-wide meeting using secure holographic channels. Dozens of human faces appeared around her conference table, projected from their respective ships. Thank you all for coming, she said simply. I know what this costs you, but the Quillen have no one else. How bad is it really? Asked one captain. Neil joined the meeting, bringing up the latest scans of the Quillen homeworld. The planet appeared on screen, beautiful blues and greens marred by spreading patches of brown decay. The Ravagers have consumed 43% of the biosphere. At current rate, the planet will be completely sterile in 37 hours. The Quillen have retreated to their largest cities, which gives us defensible positions. But there are Ravager nests in every major ecosystem now. How many are we facing? Another captain asked. Conservative estimate? 15 billion individual organisms. And they're still reproducing. The holographic room fell silent. 15 billion. Against a few thousand humans. Sam spoke up. We have faced worse odds. When? Someone challenged. Thermopylae. The Alamo. Dunkirk. Stalingrad. Sam counted on his fingers. Humans are very good at fighting when we are outnumbered. It is practically our specialty. This is different, the challenger insisted. No, Diane said quietly. This is exactly the same. Innocent people need protecting. We're the only ones willing to do it. The numbers do not matter. The Council's disapproval does not matter. What matters is that when the Quillen asked for help, we answered. She looked at each face in turn. In 36 hours, we arrive at a dying world. We will fight something that has never been defeated. We might fail. We might all die. But we will try. Because that is what humans do. We try when everyone else has given up. The meeting ended with no speeches, no rallying cries. Just quiet acceptance of what was coming. Ambassador Rhea had listened to everything from the lab. When Neil returned, she asked the question that had been building since she first contacted humanity. Why? Why would you risk everything for people you have never met? For a species you barely know? Neil thought for a long moment. Because someone asked for help. That is reason enough. The Quillen homeworld materialized on the view screen, and even hardened veterans fell silent. Half the planet burned, not with fire, but with the brown-gray spread of consumption. Entire continents looked diseased, forests reduced to bare dirt. Oceans turned murky with dissolved biomass. The Ravager swarm covered the world like a living carpet. Diane gripped the armrests of her command chair, forcing herself to breathe steadily. They had arrived with 3 hours and 17 minutes to spare. 3 hours to save 3 billion lives. No pressure. Tactical, give me target priorities, she ordered. The tactical officer's hands flew across his console, detecting major Ravager concentrations in 73 locations. Highest density surrounds the Quillen cities. They're trying to starve them out by consuming everything around them. Life signs: 2.7 billion Quillen confirmed alive, concentrated in 12 urban centers. But Captain, the cities are surrounded. The Quillen have no way out. Diane opened the fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Brooks. Commence orbital bombardement. Target grids Delta through Foxtrot. Precision strikes only. Nothing within 2 kilometers of population centers. 14 human ships opened fire simultaneously. Plasma beams lanced down from orbit, vaporizing massive swaths of Ravagers in incandescent fury. Each strike killed millions of the creatures, but there were billions more. For every section cleared, more Ravagers flowed in to replace them like a grotesque tide. Bombardment is ineffective, the tactical officer reported. They're adapting, spreading out, using terrain for cover, learning. Of course they were learning. The swarm had consumed hundreds of worlds. They had encountered resistance before. Never humanity, though. Never Deathworlders who fought like cornered animals. Deploy ground forces, Diane commanded. Target cities with highest Ravager concentration. Establish defensive perimeters. Drop pods launched from every ship, streaking through the atmosphere like falling stars. Sam Perry rode in the lead pod, checking his weapon for the 20th time. Around him, his Marines sat in silence, each one dealing with pre-combat nerves in their own way. This would not be like training. This would be chaos. The pod hit ground hard, retro thrusters barely slowing the impact. The doors blew outward, and Sam was moving before the smoke cleared. The Quillen city of Harmony's promise stretched before him, beautiful architecture of crystal and living wood. Surrounding it on all sides, the Ravagers seethed like a nightmare given form. Perimeter now, Sam barked. The Marines deployed with practiced efficiency, forming a defensive line between the city and the approaching swarm. Quillen civilians watched from behind barriers, their large eyes wide with terror. They had never seen warfare. They had never imagined anything like this. The Ravagers came in a wave of chitin and acid. Thousands of them, mandibles clicking, moving with horrifying coordination. Sam opened fire, his rifle cutting down the front rank. Beside him, 70 other humans did the same. The air filled with plasma bolts and the screeching of dying Ravagers. But for every one that fell, 2 more took its place. Contact left, someone shouted. A smaller group of Ravagers had flanked them, coming through a collapsed building. The Marines pivoted, pouring fire into the new threat. Sam threw one of Rita's thermite grenades. The device detonated in a cloud of white-hot fury, incinerating everything in its radius. The Ravagers recoiled from the heat, giving the Marines precious seconds to reposition. Inside the city, Neil had set up a mobile laboratory in what the Quillen called a Harmony Hall. Ambassador Rhea stood beside him, translating when the Quillen scientists' translators failed. Together, they were analyzing Ravager tissue samples, looking for any weakness. They should not be this resilient, Neil muttered, examining cellular structures. There has to be something. Every organism has a vulnerability. A Quillen scientist, an elderly being named Elderthorn, pointed at the screen. Look there. The genetic structure is not natural. This has been engineered. Neil zoomed in and felt ice flood his veins. Elderthorn was right. The Ravagers were not a natural species. Someone had designed them, built them, released them into the galaxy, as a weapon. But who? And why? Questions for later. Right now, he needed to find a way to stop them. Outside, Sam's defensive line was buckling. 3 Marines were down, wounded but still firing. The Ravagers had stopped their frontal assault and were testing for weak points, probing the defenses with smaller groups while the main swarm gathered for another push. "We cannot hold this position indefinitely," Sam said into his comm. "We need support." "Negative," came the response from orbit. "All other teams are engaged. You are on your own for another 20 minutes. 20 minutes. An eternity in combat." Sam reloaded his weapon and made a decision. Fall back to secondary position. Fighting withdrawal. Move. The Marines retreated in stages, one fire team providing cover while another displaced. Professional. Controlled. Exactly as trained. The Ravagers surged forward, sensing weakness. Sam waited until they were committed, then triggered the surprise Rita had built into the primary position. Charges detonated along the perimeter. Not explosives. Incendiaries. The entire defensive line erupted in flame, catching thousands of Ravagers in a firestorm. The creatures shrieked, a sound that made Sam's teeth ache, and pulled back from the heat. From the city walls, Quillen watched in stunned silence. They had asked for mercy. Instead, they got humans bringing fire to their world. But the fire was not for them. It was a shield, a barrier, a promise written in flame that said nothing would reach the innocent while humans still drew breath. A small Quillen child, no older than 6 in human years, stood at the barrier watching a human Marine reload her weapon. The Marine was bleeding from a wound in her shoulder, but still fighting. The child had been taught that violence was wrong, that all life was sacred, that harming others was the greatest sin. But the Marine was not harming others. She was protecting them, saving them. The child understood, in that moment, why our people had no words for what humans were. Because the Quillen had never needed someone to stand between them and the dark. They had never needed someone willing to become a monster to fight monsters. They needed it now. Another wave of Ravagers approached. Sam checked his ammunition. 40% remaining. Not enough. Never enough. "Fix bayonets," he ordered. His Marines attached the blades to their rifles without question. If the ammunition ran out, they would fight hand to hand. If their rifles broke, they would use knives. If the knives dulled, they would use rocks. If the rocks broke, they would use their fists, because 3 hours ago, someone had asked humans for help, and humans did not quit. Not when people needed them. Not when lives hung in the balance. Not ever. The Ravagers charged. The humans opened fire. And on a dying world circling a distant star, the battle for survival raged on. Neil stared at the readout for the 47th time, convinced he was missing something. Then he saw it. The frequency, hidden in the data from the thermite grenades that had proven most effective against the Ravagers. It was not the heat killing them, or not just the heat. It was the resonance frequency produced by burning metal compounds. "Elder Thorn, look at this." Neil pulled up 2 data sets side by side. When Rita's grenades detonate, they produce a specific harmonic frequency. The Ravagers exposed to it die faster than those just exposed to heat alone. The Quillen scientist examined the data, his translator working overtime to keep pace with his excited speech. Yes, I see it. The frequency disrupts their distributed nervous system. But this is not new information. It is old, ancient. He pulled up geological surveys of the Quillen homeworld. Our planet has 3 major volcanic chains. In ancient times, before we evolved into our current form, these volcanoes would erupt regularly. The eruptions produced similar frequency signatures. Neil felt pieces clicking into place. The Ravagers were engineered. Someone designed them to consume worlds. But they also gave them a built-in weakness. A failsafe. Volcanic frequencies that would kill them if they spread somewhere they were not supposed to. "Can we replicate it?" Rhea asked urgently. "Not at the scale we need," Neil admitted. "Unless..." He looked at the geological surveys again. The Quillen homeworld sat on active tectonic plates. The volcanoes were dormant, not extinct. "Unless we wake them up." Elder Thorn went very still. "You want to trigger volcanic eruptions on our world, while our people still live here." "Controlled eruptions," Neil clarified. "Small ones." just enough to produce the frequency we need at harmonic resonance across the whole planet. We could use seismic charges at specific tectonic weak points. And if you miscalculate, if the eruptions are not small, then we kill the Ravagers and destroy your world in the process, Neil said honestly. But if we do nothing, the Ravagers win for certain. This way we have a chance. Rhea made a sound that the translator interpreted as distress. You would gamble everything on a chance. Yes, Neil said simply, because sometimes a chance is all you get. In orbit, Rita received Neil's proposal and immediately began calculations. She pulled in every engineer from the fleet, running simulations, checking math, looking for flaws in the plan. After 43 minutes of frantic work, she opened a channel to Diane. Captain, I can do it, but there are risks. Big ones. The charges have to be placed precisely at 17 different locations across the planet. If even one is off by more than 50 meters, the harmonic cascade fails. And we need to place them while the Ravagers are actively trying to kill us. How long to place all 17 charges? Diane asked. 6 hours minimum. And that is if everything goes perfectly, which it will not. Diane looked at the tactical display. The Marines were holding their positions, but barely. Casualties were mounting. Sam had already lost 8 people, with 20 more wounded. Every other team reported similar numbers. They could hold for 6 hours. Maybe, if they were lucky. Do it, Diane ordered. Coordinate with ground teams. I want those charges placed and armed. And Rita, make sure the math is right. We only get one shot at this. Rita assembled teams from every ship. Engineers who had never seen combat were suddenly issued weapons and drop pods. They were terrified. They went anyway. Sam received the mission update while reloading his rifle behind a barricade made from fallen debris. You want us to what? He asked incredulously. Protect engineering teams while they place seismic charges, the voice from orbit repeated. 17 locations. 6-hour window. The charges will trigger controlled volcanic eruptions that should kill all the Ravagers simultaneously. Should? What happens if this goes wrong? The planet cracks open and everyone dies. Sam laughed, because the alternative was screaming. Great. Fantastic. Love it when the backup plan is planetary destruction. He switched to his team frequency. All right, Marines. New mission. We are now bodyguards for engineers doing science we do not understand to trigger volcanoes that will either save the world or end it. Questions? Silence greeted his announcement. Good. First charge location is 3 kilometers from here. We move in 5 minutes. Pack light, shoot straight, and try not to think about the fact that we are literally playing with fire. The engineering teams deployed across the planet, each one escorted by a squad of Marines who would rather face certain death than fail. Rita supervised from orbit, coordinating 17 simultaneous operations across multiple time zones and terrain types. T-Location 4, a deep oceanic trench. Engineers worked in pressure suits while Ravagers tried to breach their underwater shelter. At Location 9, a frozen tundra, Marines fought in blizzard conditions against Ravagers adapted to cold. At Location 14, a tropical rainforest, both humans and Ravagers struggled in humidity so thick it felt like breathing water. Each location presented unique challenges. Each team overcame them. Sam's group reached their target, a cave system above an ancient magma chamber. The engineers rushed inside, setting up equipment while Marines formed a perimeter. Ravagers emerged from the surrounding forest like shadows given substance. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Contact all sides, someone yelled. The Marines opened fire, creating overlapping fields of destruction. But the Ravagers kept coming. They climbed over their own dead, using corpses as shields, adapting their approach with each failed assault. Inside the cave, an engineer named David worked with shaking hands to calibrate the seismic charge. Almost there. Just need another 2 minutes. We do not have 2 minutes. Sam shouted back, throwing his last thermite grenade. The explosion bought them 30 seconds. Then his rifle's ammunition counter hit 0. Sam drew his sidearm and kept firing. Beside him, Marines switched to knives as their own weapons ran dry. They fought like humans had always fought when their backs were to the wall. Desperately, viciously, with everything they had, a Ravager broke through the line, heading straight for the cave entrance. Sam threw himself at the creature, tackling it to the ground. Acid burned through his armor as he drove his knife into the thing's brain stem over and over until it stopped moving. "Charge armed!" David yelled. "Get out, get out, get out!" The Marines ran. The Ravagers pursued. They made it 50 meters before the ground began to shake. Across the planet, 17 seismic charges detonated in perfect synchronization. Not explosions. Precise harmonic pulses designed to wake sleeping giants. The Earth answered with ancient fury. Volcanic vents opened. Not eruptions, but steady releases of superheated gas carrying the exact frequency Neil had calculated. The sound was below human hearing, but the Ravagers heard it, felt it, died from it. Everywhere the harmonic waves touched, Ravagers collapsed. Their distributed nervous systems, so resilient against normal damage, shredded under the resonance. Billions of them died in minutes, their bodies simply shutting down as if switched off. Sam watched from a hilltop as the tide of chitin and acid that had been pursuing them simply stopped moving. The creatures spasmed once, twice, then went still. Across the valley, similar scenes played out. The swarm was dying, but not without cost. The volcanic releases were supposed to be controlled. Mostly they were. But at Location 6, a fault line shifted more than predicted. A city built near the site experienced a magnitude 7 earthquake. Buildings collapsed. People died. Diane watched from orbit as casualty reports came in. The Ravagers were dead. All of them. But the price was steep. 8,000 Quillen killed by the earthquakes. 12 cities damaged. Entire ecosystems disrupted by the sudden volcanic activity. And 237 humans dead. Good people who had volunteered for a mission that was not their fight. Who had died saving strangers on a world they had never seen before. The planet fell silent for the first time in weeks. No clicking mandibles. No screeching death cries. Just quiet broken by the sound of wounded Quillen crying for lost family and human medics trying desperately to save lives they had risked everything to protect. Sam sat against a wall in Harmony's promise, too exhausted to move. Around him, his Marines tended to wounds or simply stared at nothing, processing what they had survived. Of the 73 people in his unit, 58 remained. 15 names to add to the list of those who would never go home. A Quillen child approached him slowly, clutching something in her small hands. She could not have been more than 7 years old. She stopped a few feet away, trembling but determined. "You are hurt," she said in halting English, her translator struggling with the words. Sam looked down at the acid burns on his armor, the cuts on his arms. "I will live." The child held out what she had been carrying. A flower, somehow still alive in all this death. "Thank you for protecting us. I am sorry your friends died." Sam took the flower with hands that shook from exhaustion and delayed shock. "Me too, kid. Me too." In the medical bay of the Horizons Watch, doctors worked around the clock on human and Quillen casualties both. The injuries ranged from minor burns to catastrophic trauma. A Marine named Rodriguez had lost both legs. An engineer named Sarah could not see anymore, acid having destroyed her eyes. A Quillen scientist had been crushed under falling debris when the earthquake hit. Dr. Rachel Park, the ship's chief medical officer, moved between patients like a ghost, making impossible decisions about who to treat first when everyone needed help now. She had not slept in 36 hours. She would not sleep for another 20. Diane stood in the observation deck, looking down at the planet below. Victory should feel better than this. It had saved 2.7 billion lives. But 8,000 Quillen had died in the earthquakes. 237 humans would never see Earth again. How did you weigh those numbers? How did you call it a win when good people died? "Captain," her communications officer called. "The Galactic Council is hailing. They demand to speak with you." "Put them through." 5 holographic figures appeared on the bridge, representing the major species of the Council. Their expressions range from disapproval to outright hostility. Captain Brooks, the lead counselor, spoke, a being called High Administrator Kent from the rigid Vorlon species. You have violated 47 separate protocols. You launched an unauthorized military action. You interfered in a sovereign system without permission. You triggered geological events that killed thousands. You'll explain yourself. Diane felt something cold settle in her chest. We saved 3 billion lives. By destabilizing an entire planet, Kent countered. By risking a volcanic catastrophe that could have killed everyone. By acting without authority or oversight. The oversight you speak of declared the situation unsalvageable, Diane said quietly. Your council voted to let an entire species die rather than risk violating your precious protocols. So yes, we acted without authority, because authority was too busy filing paperwork to save lives. You cannot simply ignore interstellar law because you disagree with it. I can when following the law means watching people die. Diane stepped closer to the holographic projections. You want to charge me? Revoke my license? Impound my ship? Fine, do it. But first, explain to the 2.7 billion Quillen why they should have died, because saving them was too complicated. The counselors exchanged uncomfortable looks. Finally, a different one spoke, a more moderate voice from the insectoid Chitic species. The humans' actions, while unauthorized, did achieve the stated goal of eliminating the Ravager threat. However, the collateral damage is concerning. Concerning, Diane repeated flatly. 8,000 died. That is not concerning. That is tragic. But 15 billion would have died if we did nothing. I will carry the weight of those 8,000 for the rest of my life. But I will not apologize for saving the 15 billion. Ambassador Rhea entered the bridge at that moment, flanked by Elder Thorn and other Quillen leaders. They had heard the transmission and requested to participate. Honorable Council. Rhea spoke, her voice stronger than it had been during her desperate plea for help. The humans you seek to punish save my people from extinction. Yes, we lost 8,000. Each loss is mourned. But we still exist because these Deathworlders answer a call you ignored. If you punish them for this, you tell every species in the galaxy that asking humans for help is a crime. Is that truly the message you wish to send? Elder Thorn added, the Quillen Harmony formally requests that the Galactic Council recognize the human intervention as a sanctioned peacekeeping action, retroactively authorized under emergency provisions. We also request that humans be granted permission to establish a permanent defense outpost in our system. The council chambers erupted in argument. Diane could see the counselors debating among themselves, gestures growing heated. Finally, Kent spoke again. This matter requires further deliberation. Captain Brooks, you and your people will remain in Quillen space until we reach a decision. The transmission cut off. Sam joined Diane on the bridge, limping slightly from his injuries. So, they're going to punish us for doing the right thing? Maybe, Diane said. Or maybe Rhea just gave them political cover to back down. Either way, we did what we came to do. Below them, the planet slowly began to heal. Quillen work crews cleared debris with human engineering teams. Medical personnel from both species shared knowledge and techniques. Children who had huddled in terror behind walls now played near human marines, no longer afraid. In the city square of Harmony's Promise, the Quillen erected a memorial, not just for their own dead, but for the humans who had fallen defending them. 237 names carved in crystal alongside 8,000 Quillen. The inscription read simply, "They stood between us and the dark." A week after the battle, sensor arrays detected something troubling. Deep space scans showed another Ravager swarm 3 systems away, heading toward a different inhabited world. The swarms were spreading. This had not been an isolated incident. Diane received messages from 4 other species in that sector, all of them asking the same question. Would the humans come if they called for help? Sam found her staring at the messages in her quarters. You know, if we say yes, this becomes our job. Every time some monster threatens a peaceful species, they will call us. We will be the galaxy's emergency response team. I know, Diane said. The council will hate it. They will try to stop us. Let them try. We will lose people. Every mission, every intervention, Good people dying for strangers. I know that too. Diane looked at her second officer. But someone has to, and we are the ones equipped to do it. Earth taught us to survive the unsurvivable. Maybe that is what we are supposed to do with that knowledge. Help others survive. Sam nodded slowly. The crew will follow you. You know that. Even into another fight, we might not win. Especially then. In the medical bay, Rodriguez was learning to walk with prosthetic legs. Sarah was adapting to blindness with the help of Quillen guides who had developed sophisticated tactile navigation. The wounded were healing. The dead were mourned. And the survivors were already preparing for whatever came next. Because that was what humans did. They got hurt. They got back up. They kept going. Rhea found Diane before the human fleet prepared to depart. My people wish to honor you. To give you medals, awards, recognition. We do not need medals, Diane said gently. We need you to survive, to rebuild, to remember that the galaxy still has beauty worth protecting. We will remember, Rhea promised. We will remember the Deathworlders who brought fire to our world. Not to destroy, but to save. 1 month after the Quillen intervention, Diane stood on the bridge of a ship that was no longer hers. The Galactic Council had impounded the Horizon's watch pending investigation. They had also promoted her, which she found darkly amusing. She now commanded the Sentinel's Oath, a vessel twice the size of her old ship, officially designated as a rapid response platform. The Council had backed down. They had little choice. 6 more species had requested human protection in the weeks following the Quillen rescue. Public pressure and political reality forced the bureaucrats to acknowledge what everyone else already knew. The galaxy needed someone willing to fight its monsters. Captain, incoming transmission from the Quillen system, her new communications officer reported. Sam appeared on screen, broadcasting from the surface. He had stayed behind with 40 Marines to establish the permanent defense outpost the Quillen had requested. Brooks, you need to see this. The image shifted to show a training ground where Quillen civilians practiced basic combat drills. They were clumsy, uncertain, clearly uncomfortable with the very concept of violence. But they were trying. Elder Thorne organized it, Sam explained. He said the Quillen cannot always depend on humans to save them. They need to learn to defend themselves too. So we are teaching them not to be warriors. They will never be that, but to be survivors. Diane smiled. How are they doing? Terrible, but they keep showing up. That counts for something. In the science station orbiting the Quillen homeworld, Neil worked alongside Quillen researchers analyzing Ravager remains. They had confirmed what he suspected. The swarms were engineered bioweapons, created by some unknown species millennia ago, possibly as a terraforming tool, possibly as a weapon of war. Either way, they had escaped containment and spread across the galaxy like a disease. We can create a detector network, Neil explained in his latest report to Diane. Early warning systems that alert us when Ravager swarms approach inhabited systems. It won't stop them, but it gives everyone more time to evacuate or prepare defenses. Do it, Diana authorized. Coordinate with the Council. Even they cannot argue against better detection. Ambassador Rhea had been appointed as the official liaison between the Quillen Harmony and Human Rapid Response Forces. She spent half her time on the Sentinel's Oath, learning human customs and helping bridge the cultural gap between Deathworlders and the species they protected. I still do not fully understand you, she told Diane over dinner one evening. Your people have so much. Your worlds are wealthy. Your technology is advanced. You could live in peace and comfort. Yet you volunteer to fight and die for strangers. Why? Diane considered the question carefully. Because we remember what it was like to be prey. Earth was not always dominated by humans. For millions of years, we were food for things bigger and meaner than us. We survived by working together, by protecting each other. That instinct never went away. It just expanded to include more than just other humans. So you fight because of instinct. We fight because we choose to, Diane corrected. The instinct makes us capable of it. The choice makes us willing. Every person on this ship could have said no, could have stayed home. They are here because they decided that protecting others mattered more than personal safety. Rhea was quiet for a long moment. The council fears you, you know. They call meetings about the human problem, about what to do if you become a threat. Are we a threat? Diane asked. To evil, yes. To cruelty and extinction and all the dark things the civilized species pretend do not exist. You are a very large threat to those things. Rhea smiled, which is why I sleep better knowing you exist. 2 months after the Quillen rescue, the Sentinel's Oath received its first official distress call. A colony of peaceful miners on the edge of civilized space under attack by raiders. The Galactic Council authorized intervention, provided humans minimized collateral damage, and followed proper protocols. Diane assembled her crew in the briefing room. Many were veterans from the Quillen mission. Others were new volunteers who had heard about what happened and wanted to be part of it. All of them knew the risks. We have authorization this time, Diane told them, which means we do this by the book. No unauthorized weapons. No excessive force. We go in, stop the raiders, protect the colonists, and leave. Questions? A young officer raised her hand. Captain, what if the book is not enough? What if following the rules means people die? Diane had been waiting for that question. Then we write a new book, but we try their way first. We prove that humans can be trusted with this responsibility, that we are not just good at violence, but good at restraint too. The mission went smoothly. The raiders fled at the sight of human ships, unwilling to face Deathworlders. The colonists were saved without firing a single shot. The council sent formal commendation. It was boring, routine, and perfect. Not every mission would be that easy. Diane knew that, but it was a start that, in the months that followed, humanity established rapid response teams across 3 sectors. The Sentinel's Oath was joined by 7 other ships, each one crewed by volunteers. They answered calls from species the Council had written off. They fought pirates, slavers, and the occasional Ravager swarm. They lost people. They saved billions. The memorial wall on the Sentinel's Oath grew longer with each mission. Names added in neat rows. Human and alien both, because the crew had started accepting volunteers from other species who wanted to help. Not many. Most civilized species were not suited for this work. But a few hardy souls decided that standing between the innocent and harm was worth any price. Rodriguez, walking on his new legs, trained the first non-human marine recruits. Sarah, navigating by sound and touch, helped develop tactical systems that did not rely on vision. Every person who had been broken by the Quillen mission found new purpose in helping others avoid that same trauma. Sam eventually rotated back to the Sentinel's Oath, leaving the Quillen defense outpost in capable hands. He found Diane in her quarters, reviewing casualty reports from their latest mission. Still worth it? He asked. Every time, she said without hesitation. Every life saved. Every species given a chance to survive. Yes, it is worth it, even when we lose people, especially then, because they chose this. They knew the risks. They went anyway. That choice matters. Deep in space, sensors detected another crisis forming. A plague spreading across a peaceful agro-world. Natural? Engineered? Unknown. But the people were dying and calling for help. Diane looked at the report, then at Sam. How long until we can be there? 36 hours at maximum FTL. Then we leave in 20 minutes. Alert the crew. Sam nodded and turned to go, then paused. You know they're going to write songs about us eventually. The humans who came when no one else would. I hope they get the details right, Diane said. I hope they remember that we were not heroes. We were just people who decided that doing nothing was not an option. The Sentinel's Oath broke orbit and jumped to FTL. Behind them, the Quillen homeworld continued to heal, its people learning to defend themselves while remembering those who had defended them first. Across the galaxy, other species watched and wondered, some with hope, some with fear, all with the knowledge that the Deathworlders had proven something important. Mercy did not require weakness. Protection did not require cruelty. And sometimes, the most savage beings in the galaxy were also the most compassionate. The Quillen had asked for mercy, terrified of what would answer. The Deathworlders had brought salvation and fire, because they understood that both were necessary. The fire to burn away the threats. The salvation to preserve what was beautiful. And as long as someone cried out for help, there would be humans willing to answer. Not for glory, not for payment, but because standing between the helpless and the dark was what humanity had always done at IT, was what they would always do. The ship disappeared into FTL, racing toward another world in need, carrying another crew willing to pay whatever price was required. Because someone had to, and humans had learned, long ago in Earth's brutal crucible, that when everyone else says something is impossible, you simply try harder. The galaxy was safer for it, and terrified by it, but mostly grateful.